Hey folks, I was just going to carve a small scoop out of this piece of wood, and I figured why not record myself doing it, so that if you're learning or if I have anything that you could learn from me, go ahead and follow along. I just did a review on the small right hook by Svante Djarv. If you're interested in this knife in particular, you can go back and watch that video, but otherwise I'm just going to kind of talk through my thoughts as I carve a small scoop. So this one I actually started the bowl. I usually don't start with the bowl, but I did just because I was reviewing this knife. So I'll probably put the bowl on hold and grab a knife. So this wood is not super fresh, but it just came out of my freezer yesterday. So usually what I'll do is, to keep wood green for as long as possible, I'll put it in the freezer in a Ziploc bag, and it'll keep enough moisture in for long enough time so that I don't have to rush to get to it. What I also find is, and I think this just comes from aged wood in general, so by aged I mean wood that was fresh, that is not completely dry yet, but it's kind of taken its time to dry out. So when it's aged like that, it actually gets a waxy texture. So something that does that is also sitting in the log for a long time. So when I get wood, I work a lot with cherries, so when I get a cherry log, I leave it in the log, in a big log too, not cut down to length already, but in as big a log as I can manage, and I let it sit there until I need it. And typically, even though when I get into the log it'll still be pretty green and pretty fresh, but just from sitting and kind of naturally drying a little bit, the wood will be a waxier texture. And I don't know if that's just the in-between dry and wet stage, or if that's just from aging or drying slowly in general, but regardless, it's a nice texture to work with, the waxy texture. So what I'm going for right now is just going for a general scoopy shape. There's still a lot of meat left on this scoop, so I don't really know how much I'm going to try and take off, or if I just want to make a chunky scoop. I don't always make these with a particular purpose in mind. So sometimes they turn out random. Sometimes it's a good way to find something new. You know, instead of sitting down and brainstorming a bunch about what to try, just start going and see what comes out. I've done it both ways. Alright, so let's see. I'm actually thinking maybe instead of going for symmetry here, I might try to make it curve around like, what is that, Paisley or something? Like part of a yin yang symbol sort of shape. So if we curve this around, let's see where I'm going with this. I don't know if I've really gone for, I can think of one other scoop I did in a similar shape, but sometimes scissored across my chest for this cut. I should probably experiment with some other camera angles at some point. Just haven't gotten there yet. Alright, let's see. What are we doing here? It's only getting weirder. Let's see. Alright, let's reassess for a minute. Probably could make that bowl a little bigger. Probably could make this a little rounder. Let's see, what do we think? What do we think? Let's see. I think this is sticking out too much. I think that's what's throwing my eyes off every time I look at it. I can't help but wonder what's so wrong with this shape. I think this is just too much on the eyes. It's tricky. I don't know about you guys, but when I look at something, I don't even always know what's wrong. I just know something's wrong. It doesn't look right. One of the things that can help with that, especially with symmetry, which I'm terrible at, but if you're not sure what's wrong, hold it up like this with a light background, so it can be up to the sky, up to a window, and squint your eyes and hold it and flip it, and try to see what's the thing that, on which side that needs to be leveled out or adjusted. Some facets on the back there. Nothing crazy or final yet. Let's see. I want to make it have just a little bit of slope to it, so it's not all one thickness. I don't know. I feel like that could be weird. Right. So let's see. Well, it's deeper at the bowl. It's probably almost time to go back. Almost time to go back into that bowl. Now, I've never, I don't know, maybe I've done this in one scoop. I don't want to say never, but I don't know if I've ever had a weird turn like this in the handle. For the turns where you're going to come up under grain and probably have to fight the tear out. Important to do a lot of rolling and turning with the blade, so you can kind of see, I don't know, can you see a little bit of tear out right there? A little bit of tear out, so back to this side, do a little bit of knife rolling. See, and then tear it out the other direction, so kind of asking for it anytime you put yourself in a situation like this. It's like a never-ending puzzle. But if you have a sharp knife and if the wood is kind of in this waxy stage, probably the two best factors you can give yourself hope. Alright, so now I gotta figure out what I'm doing with the end of this handle. I don't know. Do I have to figure it out right now? Maybe not. I might like that. More like the straighter. I'm not sure what I want yet. Maybe this is the shape I want. Like how the curve from this side kind of follows this lever cut. I'm just kind of following the spoon. I'm kind of liking how all these cuts are just kind of mixing into each other pretty well. So let's see. Alright. I think it's time to put a little bit more energy up front. And handles got handle stuff going for it at this point. So it's probably alright, we're gonna leave it at that for now. We'll come back later. Alright, so far pretty flat on the top. So that might be something we want to fix too, is a little bit of a crank. It's definitely a lot of extra meat up front, so we're going to have to decide what to do. I think probably this is a good start. I think, depending on what you're going for, it's okay if the front's bulky. Some people go for very thin, very contoured. A bulkier scoop. That's okay too. Alright, so there's some facets on that. That is an awkward spot right there. See that high point? I don't know. We're going to have to do something about that. There is too much meat. Eee. That was the wrong way to do that. See that? So you got to follow the grain. Alright, so so they're supposed to move. Tried avoiding this way, but that way did not avoid me. Okay, let's fix this up. One thing I do like about this waxy wood is once you really find the grain, and if you have a sharp blade, the way it peels off is very very satisfying, and you feel very productive about it too. You just feel like each cut, you feel like you're getting done what you want to get done. Alright, so we just, over the past minute or so, we changed a lot of stuff. We moved a lot of material, but I think we also changed a lot about okay. So in a similar spot with a high point right here. Let's bring that down. Use this pivot cut to blend it right into the handle. Okay, it's getting that smaller, scoopier feel on my hand now. I don't know if it's looking much smaller on camera, but it's giving off scoopy vibes. So let's focus on making the bottom seem like a good profile, which I think it has right now for the most part. I think it's more about laying down some good facets with some good blend, so it flows. So you don't want these high spots. Facets are good, but I feel like just plain high spots is not. I like that color coming out of the wood. Alright, so let's see. If I look at this direction across the back, I tend to roll and look for high spots. So like when I even start the roll right here, I see that's a high spot. So let's make that nice and curved like that. Another high spot. I'm trying to look at the camera so I can. This is an instance where a darker background helps. So, that looks kind of like a high spot right there. Okay, so back. Roll. Look on the profile of the back. That looks kind of high right there. And sometimes it's just a little. Sometimes it's like literally where two facets meet, it's just a little too high. So you could just go over the back, and if you see very belligerently high spots from where facets meet, so you could also just trim those down. Just you won't end up with a very bold facet look. So it's, you gotta kind of go with whatever your goal is. If you want to have those high spots, there are no rules against them. So that I know of. All right, looking pretty good right now. Let's focus on the bowl a little bit. So This is different because it's not going to be really obvious which side like to a bowl with an egg shape. Bowl with an egg shape, you kind of make sure it's all lined up straight according to the handle. I don't really know what the this one I'm just going to follow the outline. I don't really think that's what I should do, but I'm going to do it just to see what happens. What do we think? What do we think? What do we think? Very weird shape. Maybe I'll regret this. What if I made the bowl also almost like if someone took the egg shape and tried to, if someone took a hard-boiled egg, tried to almost squeeze it into a Paisley yin yang shape. What do we think? What would, like if it just bounced in and out of a form? What do you think, like that? Just like a light squeeze? Maybe. Like that. It's kind of hard to see. I don't know how to show it best. Block light off from different angles, see if that helps. I don't know. See that dark spot? That's where it's still actually pretty wet in the wood. I don't even know how old this wood is. So that's the power of freezing wood in a Ziploc bag. What I'll usually do too is I'll just put a little extra water in there in the Ziploc bag just to keep the moisture content a little higher, because the water will still come out of the wood in the freezer. It'll do it a lot slower, even in the Ziploc bag. But I've also re-soaked wood before. Alright. Well, kind of down to the moment of truth of, am I going to put a crank in this, like a bend in the handle or not? And right now I'm not really positioned well to do it. Like if I did it, it would change my bowl shape, change a lot about what's going on here. So. But maybe I should try it. Then I'd be doing two curves, right? Let's try a little bit. Why not? This whole thing has been an experiment so far, so why stop now? Very awkward positions here now. So let's see. Kind of carve down. And the nice thing about smaller scoops, and I think I mentioned this in the other scoop video, the nice thing about smaller spoons, smaller scoops, is you don't even need to axe in the crank. You can kind of carve your own crank out of it later on in the process. I'm not saying it's recommended, but for me, who, you know, when I do these things, I'm not looking to put in a whole ton of axe time, which you wouldn't have to, but it's not really why I'm out there swinging the hatchet. So if I can just like wham wham on a piece of wood with the hatchet, and then, you know, I've got the basics for a scoop. That's usually what I go with. I also find the less I plan a scoop, by leaving more on it, the more different shapes I come out with. So I've enjoyed that. I have shapes that I do try to repeat, and for those you can, you know, spend more axe time, and there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, I'm trying to come down now and meet my cut. I'm gonna make a little facet on the side here. What do I got? What do I got? Can I make it happen? It's a very small amount of crank, like probably not really worthy of the word crank, if we're being honest. Crank police are going to come get me if I call it a crank. So a little bit of slope down the handle to the base of the bowl, a little slope. Slope down the bowl to meet somewhere around there. Tiny bit of, all you're trying to do is give it a little bit of curve. The problem with leaving anything perfectly flat is it's really easy for your eye to say that is not flat. But when there's a curve, it's a little bit more difficult for your eye to say that curve is a bad curve. Oops. Definitely possible. I'm not saying it's not possible. Don't try me on that one. But I think just in general, if something is not perfectly flat, the eye picks that up, finds that a little bit more dissonant than when a curve is a little off. Your eye is a little bit more willing to play along with a curve. Well, I think that gets us pretty close to the end here. And by end, I mean the part where you could spend as much or as little time as you want going around and around and around the scoop, trying to smooth over and fix and straighten and facet and curve and adjust. I do usually around the tops here. I just try to, I'm not a big fan of rough edges, so I just try to do some semi-bold facets on the end. Nothing too bossy, but simply so that there's some geometry. Alright, with that, you can see there's a little bit of curve. I don't know. Probably nothing worth talking about. Go around here. Ooh. Let's see that. Grain. Something that's definitely, in my opinion, pretty important about final cuts is going around that bowl and trying to get a nice curve around the bowl, because that's something that your eye, whoever ends up with the scoop from you, their eye will catch right away if you have high spots lying around the edge of the bowl, and it will just make the whole scoop look a little less amazing. And if you put all this time into this thing in the first place, you might as well hit the easy parts. Alright, I'm going to do just a little bit more around the rim. This is more about the profile of the rim than anything else. And this is also a part where I could make the bowl deeper. Definitely could make it deeper. Definitely could take meat off the back if I wanted to be a more delicate scoop. There's probably like a good 1/4 inch all the way around. I think a lot of people would probably say that's too much. And you know what? Maybe they're right. Let's see if we can. There we go. This now is feeling really scoopy, like you could actually scoop a fair volume of stuff, which, you know, if that's your goal, then that's good. If that wasn't your goal, then that's bad. No rules. I'm probably just taking it from about a 1/2 tablespoon to a whole tablespoon. A little bit of chattering on there. Take that a little slower, a little. Kind of ended up with it's actually a pretty egg-shaped bowl, but the egg is kind of reverse what it would be on a spoon. Kind of like how that turned out. that definitely, I feel like pumped some more more purpose into the scoop. Give it a little bit more capacity, something. Just didn't feel right when it was too shallow. Something. Could have kept it, but I just think after I said that it was a 1/4 inch thick bowl, I sit well. Alright, I think that's it. This would be probably something I'd let sit for a day. Probably feel it over with my hands a few times, just searching for high spots, and then just go back a final time once it's a little drier and take off any final parts, like this high spot right here. I think overall that actually turned out nice. I like the rings in the bowl. I like the shape. Someone were to hold it like this and scoop, that's kind of the right way to do it. So I guess a lefty can I kind of like both ways. But yeah, nothing crazy, just a little something to sit and carve. So, and I think the nice thing about something this size is it's very manageable to do inside. I don't usually carve at my desk, but that's where I have the camera right now, so here I am. But you could carve it at your desk. You could take this little piece of wood with you somewhere. It's not like you're carrying around a whole bunch of 2x4s and power tools. You could sit in a park. I don't know. A lot of places to sit in this world, I guess. Alright. Just trying to, probably hard to see on the camera, I don't think you can see it, but there's just a few spots that need to be smoothed over, then they'll look even. It's the small things, and you know, some people just have a real eye for it. I do not. So if something catches my eye, I get concerned about all the stuff that is not. Choke up way on the blade and try to do a tiny little, like a little fraying piece of wood right there. I'm just trying to. There you go. I don't always do that, but. Right now the wood is just a little wet and waxy, which is really good for a lot of things, but it makes final cuts just a little trickier. So that's kind of what's going on right now. Alright, you can't really see off camera, but my face is getting closer and closer to the scoop. You can see better and better. Lighting is really important when it comes to stuff like this. Alright, I think I'm content. Like I said, what I'll usually do is I'll just let this hang around. I'll come back. Tend to do this a little bit. Anything catch your fingers. Feel anything that definitely feels lumpy like that. That's a lumpy. But you could go on forever. So at some point, you have to decide that it's done. And you know, if you're selling it, you probably have a certain level of quality. If you're making it to put in your own kitchen, sometimes I think it's more interesting to take something and not finish it all the way to what you would do for selling it. Like when you're still not really content with the final form, and put it in your own kitchen and see if you even notice. in a couple months, because sometimes I think it can be easy to become over concerned with the perfection of an item if you know it's going to someone else, which isn't bad, but I just get curious if I would notice or if other people even notice. Who knows? Some cuts got to be the last cut. That was it. Alright, well, that was me just carving a little scoop out of cherry wood, sapwood, heartwood, Mora what is this, 106, I think. And yeah, thanks for watching. If you have questions, comment below. This wasn't supposed to be much of a explanation as much as just walking you through my thoughts when I kind of freestyle carve a little scoop like this, or like this, or like this, or like this. I think they're fun. Definitely not a get-rich-quick scheme, but fun. And yeah, and I used my Mora and the Svante Djarv on a small right hook. So I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, comment below. Check out my other videos. I really enjoyed watching YouTube videos while carving and while learning before, so that's kind of why I'm doing it now, is just because it helped me a lot. So I figured just a way to share a little bit. So thanks for watching.